He didn't raise his voice, he didn't point a finger, and he didn't utter a single harsh accusation. Yet that moment, behind the polished doors of a royal dressing room, felt like a lightning strike rolling silently across the sky. It was the moment Prince William looked at his wife, freshly returned to public life, still carrying the invisible weight of her health recovery, and asked the one question that millions had been whispering for months. It was not anger in his tone, but a heavy insistence, the kind that only appears when a man feels the world closing in on the person he loves most. And in that fragile pause, the Princess of Wales finally revealed the truth that would collapse an entire mountain of speculation with nothing more than a single, disarming sentence. This story does not begin with shouting or confrontation. It begins with unease, the kind quietly brewing beneath the surface as the world dissected a simple change in Kate's appearance. A change so small, so ordinary, that in any other family it would have passed without a second glance. But within the House of Windsor, even a shift in the shade of hair can ignite a public storm. Social media had already sharpened its magnifying glass, gossip sites circled like restless birds, and every step Kate took in the open air seemed to multiply the questions rather than silence them. People wanted answers. And for reasons neither she nor William fully understood at first, the whispers simply refused to die down. So when William asked his question, it wasn't about vanity, nor was it about royal image. It was the culmination of weeks in which a private couple watched the digital tide twist a natural sunlit change into an elaborate mystery. He wanted to know how to protect her from the endless swirl of theories. He wanted to understand what had actually happened, to her hair, yes, but more importantly, to the narrative spiraling far beyond their control. And the truth she offered him was so simple, so ordinary, and so profoundly human that it instantly stripped the drama from the air around them. The truth was this: there was no hidden procedure, no prosthetic masterpiece, no elaborate disguise crafted by palace stylists. The world had spun its story from nothing more than summer sunlight and a woman who spent her recovery outdoors with her children. A gentle brightening. A natural lift. The kind of transformation that countless parents experience after long afternoons in the garden or by the seaside. Kate, with her characteristic calm, explained that the shift, so small to her, so monumental to the outside world, was simply the sun leaving its signature on her hair. Yet that explanation, clear and unembellished, only arrived publicly months later at the Royal Variety Show. Before that, only William heard it directly. Only he felt the weight lift when she said it aloud. Because he had watched, with tightening concern, how her quiet reappearance after a deeply personal battle had been overshadowed by the fixation on whether her hair was real, altered, or strategically enhanced. It frustrated him, not because of the rumors themselves, but because of what they symbolized. His wife had fought through an intensely private challenge, stepped back into the world with courage, and instead of compassion, she was met with a magnifying glass. And so the payoff of this story is not a dramatic revelation, but a dramatic contrast. The truth was soft, ordinary, and gentle. The speculation was loud, relentless, and unforgiving. Kate's hair became the unlikely battlefield where curiosity collided with compassion, where imagination replaced facts, and where William, ever the protective husband, needed clarity not for himself, but to defend the quiet dignity of the woman beside him. In the end, the storm wasn't defeated by a press release, a stylist's statement, or a palace correction. It ended because Kate, with a serene smile and a touch of humor, chose to simply tell the truth. And from that moment on, the entire narrative shifted. The boulder of rumor rolled back down the hill, undone by sunshine. No storm ever begins with thunder. It always starts with a flicker, small, almost invisible, before the world realizes the skies were shifting all along. For the Princess of Wales, that flicker appeared the very moment she stepped back into the public eye after her long summer retreat, a retreat meant to restore her strength and reclaim her rhythm after months of private healing. The world was eager, hungry even, to see her return. Cameras waited like watchful eyes, reporters poised with pens hovering in the air, and admirers hoped for a glimpse of reassurance that she was truly back. But instead of focusing on her steady posture or her renewed presence, attention snapped instantly toward something far more trivial yet inexplicably magnetic: the color of her hair. It wasn't merely lighter, it shimmered with a sun-kissed glow that caught the daylight in ways unfamiliar to the public. In a heartbeat, one gentle shift became the spark that lit 1,000 conversations. People didn't just notice it, they devoured it, magnified it, questioned it, and built their own stories around it. And before anyone inside the palace fully understood what was happening, that small shimmer had already transformed into the first rising flame of a far larger blaze. The spark had barely taken shape before it roared into something far greater. What began as a casual observation, an almost affectionate, "Oh, her hair looks lighter," quickly morphed into the kind of collective fascination that only the internet can fuel. Within hours, timelines buzzed, comment sections swelled, and hashtags emerged like alarm bells ringing across a digital kingdom. The question that echoed above all others was deceptively simple yet carried the weight of suspicion. Was the Princess of Wales wearing something more than just her natural hair? It was not an accusation, not even a criticism, but rather the first ripple of curiosity in a pond that had suddenly become too still. After months of silence surrounding her health, the public had grown familiar with uncertainty. And uncertainty, when paired with the glow of a new appearance, has a way of breeding theories faster than truth can keep up. Observers zoomed in on photographs, drawing red circles around strands of hair as though uncovering clues from an unsolved mystery. Others whispered that the world had seen this pattern before: dramatic transitions, sudden color shifts, strands of impossible fullness. Theories spiraled with breathtaking speed, each one adding a layer of tension to a narrative that had never belonged to Kate in the first place. Some saw the lighter tone as a symbol of renewal, others as a veil hiding something more fragile beneath. And though no one said it outright, the unspoken context loomed like a shadow. She had endured a chapter of life marked by vulnerability, and people could not help but connect dots that did not belong together. Her hair became a canvas onto which strangers projected their fears, hopes, and imagined explanations. What struck hardest was not the question itself, but the relentlessness with which it returned. Every new appearance fed the cycle. Every photo became a frame to analyze. Every silence from Kensington seemed, to the online crowd, an invitation to speculate further. The conversation no longer hovered around beauty or style. It circled something deeper, more complex, and far more unfair. And as the volume of the digital chorus rose, it became clear that this was no longer just curiosity. It had become a storm searching desperately for an answer. Long before the public heard a single word from Kensington, Prince William felt the tremor of something shifting around his wife. It wasn't the kind of change one sees. It was the kind one senses, a subtle tightening in the air whenever Kate's name appeared on a screen or a headline flickered across his periphery. He had watched her rebuild her strength quietly, step by step, choosing peace over spectacle, privacy over performance. Yet the moment she stepped outside, the world seemed determined to rewrite her story through the narrow lens of a hair strand. William had always understood that life in the monarchy meant being watched, but there was something different this time, something sharper. The murmurs didn't feel like harmless curiosity. They carried an undercurrent, soft but persistent, that pressed against Kate's recent vulnerability. He recognized that tone. He had lived through its echo during some of the darkest chapters of his life. And now, as the digital tide grew louder, he found himself caught between two powerful instincts: to let the noise fade on its own, or to shield his wife from a scrutiny she had not yet regained the strength to ignore. The palace hallways were filled with their usual quiet, but for William, each step echoed with concern. He saw how the whispers followed Kate from event to event, how the smallest photographs were plucked apart by strangers searching for something that wasn't there. What troubled him wasn't the speculation itself, but the way it chipped so casually at her peace she had worked so hard to reclaim. To the world, it was a game of theories. To him, it was a reminder of how delicate the balance of recovery truly is. He knew Kate carried the weight gracefully, as she always had, but he could also see the faint traces of exhaustion in the moments between engagements. The storm forming online was not just about hair. It was about how quickly the world forgets a person's fragility the moment they return to the spotlight. And this time, William would not allow that storm to sweep her away. There are moments in royal life that never make it into photographs, moments that unfold not on red carpets or beneath chandeliers, but in the unguarded silence behind a closed door. It was in such a moment, just the two of them, no advisors, no stylists, no cameras, when the tension that had been building around Kate's hair finally reached William. The palace room was calm, almost too calm, its stillness pressing against the noise that had chased them all week. Kate sat near the window where the late afternoon light brushed gently across her hair, illuminating the golden strands that had become the subject of an unexpected public frenzy. William watched her for a moment, taking in the serene expression she tried to maintain. He had seen her hold herself together for countless engagements, but this was different. This was their private refuge, the one place where she didn't have to pretend. And yet, even here, he could sense the invisible pressure sitting beside her like a third presence in the room. The endless commentary, the speculation, the theories, it all hung in the air between them. He approached without ceremony, without the grandeur the world imagines when picturing a future king. His voice was quiet, steady, edged not with frustration but with concern. It wasn't a command. It wasn't an accusation. It was a simple, human question, wrapped in the weight of everything he had witnessed. Are you all right with all of this? For a heartbeat, Kate didn't respond. Not because she was hiding anything, but because she seemed to be gathering the strength to put the swirling chaos into words. The light shifted across her face, revealing hints of fatigue beneath her composed exterior. She had weathered storms far worse than online whispers, yet this one felt strangely invasive, as though the world had reached into her private life and tugged at something deeply personal. When she finally spoke, it was with a softness that held both vulnerability and quiet resilience. She explained the truth to him exactly as she would later share it with the world, but in this room, the words carried more weight. She wasn't shielding him from anything, nor dressing the truth in royal polish. She simply described how the summer sun, and hours spent outdoors with their children, had naturally lightened her hair. William listened, absorbing every word. The relief he felt wasn't dramatic, it was deeper, quieter, the kind that comes when a worry you have carried silently dissolves with unexpected gentleness. He didn't care about the color, the rumors, or the speculation. What mattered was the woman before him, the woman whose grace under pressure had always astounded him. In that private exchange, the storm outside the palace walls seemed to lose its force. And though the world would continue to whisper for weeks to come, within that room, clarity had finally taken its place. As the digital storm swirled and the palace maintained its familiar silence, a new wave of voices emerged, voices from outside the royal walls, carrying authority not from titles but from decades spent mastering the delicate world of beauty and image. They were not rescuers in the literal sense, but their presence had the effect of people walking into a room full of smoke and quietly opening a window. One of the first to speak was Sam McKnight, a man whose name alone evokes a legacy of iconic royal moments. His words did not call out individuals or attempt to scold the crowd. Instead, they carried a kind of calm gravity, reminding the public that speculation, however playful it may seem, can cut sharply when aimed at someone navigating a vulnerable chapter of life. His intervention shifted the tone, inviting people to look beyond the glow of hair color and remember the person beneath it. Soon, technical experts followed, specialists who knew the difference between transformation and illusion. They explained the possibilities behind fuller volume or subtle lift, bringing clarity without breaching privacy. The public had painted elaborate scenarios, but these professionals quietly countered them with grounded explanations, as if gently sweeping away chalk lines drawn from imagination. A prosthetic hair expert, known informally in the industry as a wig whisperer, offered one of the most disarming insights. They noted that the Princess of Wales was not wearing anything resembling a full wig, and that her appearance aligned far more with temporary extensions or natural sunlit shifts, techniques known to countless women seeking a fresh look without drastic steps. Their explanation stood not as a revelation, but as a reminder that beauty often blends technique with nature in simple, accessible ways. With each calm, measured statement, the experts cooled the temperature of the conversation. And though the storm had not yet passed, the flames had undeniably begun to settle. For months, the question lingered in the air like a stubborn echo. It didn't shout, but it didn't fade either. It drifted through comment sections, resurfaced in headlines, and attached itself to every new photograph of the Princess of Wales. Silence, as dignified as it was, only fed the curiosity. The world had turned a simple change of hair color into a riddle, one waiting for the princess to solve. The answer did not arrive in a formal statement or a polished press release. It came instead in a setting wrapped in velvet curtains, glittering lights, and the soft hum of anticipation, the royal variety show. It was the kind of evening where glamour softened the edges of reality, where performers and royals mingled in a rare blend of ceremony and warmth. And it was here, in the middle of this lively atmosphere, that the truth finally slipped into the world with disarming simplicity. Kate had been moving through the crowd with her usual composed grace when a familiar burst of energy arrived in her orbit. Sue Pollard, the beloved entertainer whose personality could light an entire stage. Sue's approach was free of the hesitations that often accompany royal interactions. She admired Kate the way the public did, openly and sincerely, and in a moment that felt refreshingly human, she voiced the compliment heard around the world, "I love your hair. It looks so much lighter." It was not a loaded question. It did not carry the weight of the speculation that had defined the last few months. It was merely a friendly observation. But in that effortless honesty lay an opportunity for a truth the public had waited for far longer than Kate herself ever expected. Kate's response arrived with the same natural ease as her smile, soft, unguarded, almost playful. She didn't lean in as though guarding a secret. She didn't deflect. She simply let the words fall with the gentleness of sunlight filtering through leaves. "It used to be brown, but it's gone light in the sunshine." The simplicity of the answer drew breath from the room. Not because it was shocking, but because it dismantled everything that had built up around her. There were no hidden techniques to decode, no elaborate styling revelations, no theatrical explanations. Just a truth so ordinary it felt almost poetic. The sun had touched her hair, and the world had mistaken nature's handiwork for mystery. In an instant, months of speculation unraveled. The theories evaporated, leaving behind only the warmth of a human moment, a reminder that even those who wear crowns are shaped by the same sunlight that paints the rest of our lives. And as Kate laughed softly with Sue, the digital storm outside the theater walls quietly began to lose its power. Because sometimes the truth doesn't roar, it glows. Long before the truth settled the noise, observers around the world wondered how something as delicate as a strand of hair could send the public into a frenzy. But in the royal sphere, even the smallest shift can feel like a tremor beneath an ancient structure. It wasn't really about the color change, it was about what the change represented to a world that watches the Princess of Wales with an intensity rarely afforded to anyone else. Every movement she makes appears under a spotlight. Every expression becomes a headline. And every detail, down to the shade of her hair, turns into a symbol for people eager to interpret more than what is truly there. For many, Kate's lighter hair seemed to arrive at a moment when the public's curiosity was already heightened. She had stepped away, faced a challenging chapter with courage, and returned with a quiet resilience. The world, unsure how to process that silence, clung to whatever clues it thought it could find. Her hair, innocently touched by summer light, became the unwitting canvas for speculation about her well-being, her emotions, even the state of the royal family itself. People projected meaning into it as though it were part of a coded message. This is the paradox of modern royalty. The public wants the glamour, the symbolism, the fairy tale sheen, yet forgets that these figures are still human, subject to the same sunlight, the same seasons, the same quiet transformations everyone else experiences. The intensity placed upon Kate, especially as a future queen consort, reveals how deeply she has become woven into the emotional fabric of a nation. She represents steadiness, kindness, and continuity. So when she changes, even subtly, the world reacts as though a page in a centuries-old book has suddenly rewritten itself. The reaction wasn't rooted in malice. It was born from fascination, fear, admiration, and unmet curiosity colliding all at once. But fascination, when unbalanced, can become overwhelming. It can turn gentle interest into relentless observation. And that is what happened here. A simple shift became a magnifying glass, one that reflected far more about the public's anxieties than about Kate herself. In the end, the storm surrounding her hair revealed a truth greater than any rumor. It showed how invested people are in her journey, how deeply they seek reassurance in her presence, and how easily the smallest change can ripple through an entire kingdom, simply because she is the one who carries the crown's future on her shoulders. In the grand halls of royalty, power is often measured by crowns, titles, and centuries-old traditions. But for Prince William, power has always meant something far quieter, standing firm when the winds rise, especially when those winds turn toward the woman who has walked beside him through every chapter of their shared life. The world sees their public appearances, the polished smiles, the poised waves, but few understand the invisible shield he carries, one built not of authority, but of devotion. Kate's return to duty had been a triumph of her own resilience, yet the speculation around her hair turned that triumph into a test none of them expected. To the public, it was a mystery. To William, it was a reminder of how quickly the outside world can press its weight onto someone still finding her balance. He had witnessed how the smallest comment online could spiral into narratives she never wrote, how a shift in color, born from sunlight, laughter, and afternoons with their children, became distorted into something far more dramatic. In private, he absorbed the noise so she wouldn't have to. It wasn't anger that stirred in him, but a deep, protective instinct, the kind that grows stronger in those who have lost before and refuse to lose again. He had seen shadows of the past attempting to creep into the present, and he met them not with confrontation, but with steadiness. His role was never to silence the world, but to soften its impact on her. Kate herself had faced the entire ordeal with grace, yet even grace needs room to breathe. William understood that. He knew when to speak, when to defend, when to question, even gently, and when to simply stand between her and the storm until it passed. That is the kind of guardianship the public rarely sees, a quiet form of loyalty that doesn't need to be declared, only lived. And as the world finally accepted the truth behind her sunlit hair, William remained as he had been from the beginning, the steady presence beside her, the unwavering calm in the swirl of speculation, the silent promise that she would never face these storms alone. In the end, the entire saga, months of whispers, theories, magnified screenshots, and endless speculation, collapsed under the weight of a truth so gentle it almost felt like a whisper carried on a summer breeze. Kate's explanation, delivered with calm sincerity, did more than put the rumors to rest. It rebalanced a narrative that had spun too far from reality. The sun had lightened her hair, nothing more, nothing less. A simple moment of nature shaping a life already shaped by public expectation. But beneath that simplicity lies the far deeper message of this story. It reminds us how tiny details can grow monstrous when the world is hungry for meaning. It reveals how individuals in the spotlight are expected to carry their private battles in silence while also being flawless symbols for millions. And it shows how quickly admiration can transform into scrutiny when uncertainty lingers in the air. For Kate, this was never about color or style. It was about reclaiming her humanity in a world that often forgets she has won. She met the speculation not with frustration but with grace, reminding everyone that authenticity can be the strongest answer of all. And William, standing beside her through every twist of the story, proved once again that leadership is not always found in commands. It is found in presence, in awareness, in knowing when a simple question is needed and when silence speaks louder. The world may move on to the next headline, but the lesson remains. Even the future queen cannot escape the relentless gaze, yet she can rise above it with dignity. The storm over her hair was never about hair. It was about everything the public projects onto her: hopes, fears, expectations, and worries. A single strand became a symbol for a nation still learning how to balance its fascination with compassion. And now, I turn the question to you. What does this moment say about the world we've built around our public figures? Were you surprised by the gentleness of Kate's answer, or did you sense all along that the truth was hiding in plain sight? Share your thoughts in the comments, because your voice helps us understand these stories as more than gossip. They are reflections of the pressure, grace, and resilience woven into modern royalty. If you found this deep dive compelling, remember to like this video, subscribe for more royal analysis, and tap the notification bell so you never miss our next chapter in this unfolding royal story. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay curious.